In the untamed frontiers of 1850s New Mexico, one cattleman's pursuit became a path he could have never foreseen. When Elias rescued a Navajo maiden fleeing ruthless bandits, he had no clue she'd unleash tempests, gifts, and the battle of his existence. Craving more gripping frontier tales like this? Hit subscribe, give it a thumbs up, and stick around for the upcoming installment. All right, let's dive in. The jagged ridges of the New Mexico territory bore a chill breeze that dawn, swirling grip over the barren grasslands as Elias Thorne cinched the buckle on his saddle. Tracking game wasn't merely a hobby, it was life itself. With frost creeping in swift, the spread craved provisions, and Elias aimed to outpace the chill. He set off pre-dawn, tracing the subtle paths etched by antelope along the escarpment. His mount plodded sure-footed, hooves tapping gently on the parched soil. The expanse lay hushed, pristine, the sort of stillness that echoed deeper than any tale folks could spin. Elias drew in a long breath, oblivious that destiny trailed right alongside. Time drifted as he peered through the piñon thickets, alert for any stir. He figured on the flick of an antelope's flank or the scurry of a cottontail, but the glimpse that hit him instead locked him rigid in the stirrups. A subtle motion, too fluid, too intentional. Elias squinted sharp. It wasn't the wild bolt of quarry or the sleek prowl of a hunter. It was folks. Gut instinct surged. Strains in the region had simmered for weeks. Wayfarers whispered of strikes, traps, vanishings. Elias eased up his carbine, breath even, nudging his horse nearer. Weaving through the scrub, Elias spotted her. Tucked behind a toppled trunk, huddled small like she yearned to melt into the dirt, crouched a young Navajo woman. She couldn't have topped 20 summers. Her raven locks matted with grime, her garb ripped, her arms scored with ugly welts like she'd been lashed for an age. When her gaze locked on his, he caught pure terror. Not the fierce guard he'd braced for, but a dread forged in agony. She quivered, breaths ragged, frame shuddering from weariness. Elias gripped his rifle firm, yet uncertainty wormed in. This wasn't a sentry priming a snare or a fighter eyeing flaws. This was a soul bolting from horrors beyond his reckoning. His pulse thrummed as he mulled each twist. Taking her back? That courted clashes with local Navajo clans. Leaving her? She'd likely fade by dusk. The quiet hung thick, till she rasped a lone plea in halting English. Help. That cry clashed with the wilds, too tender, too raw. Elias dipped his rifle a hair, tracing her features. Filth traced her face, lips split from dehydration. No arms on her, no blade, no quiver, not a satchel. She fled bare, and whatever hounded her had shattered her spirit. Something stirred deep in Elias, hesitation flipping to grit. He couldn't feign he missed that cry, couldn't spur away and erase her stare. He eyed the turf round them, deciphering tracks like a chart. Clues screamed plain. Stout boots, a scrape mark, signs of a stagger. Bandits, traffickers snatching Navajo girls to hawk in far-flung outposts. Whispers of their savagery had buzzed for moons. Elias ground his teeth. If she'd slipped their grasp, they'd scour close. Aiding her? That painted a target on him. But standing idle? That'd lump him with the scum she fled. He let out a slow sigh, and chose. Elias dismounted, edging near with open hands to signal peace. The woman jerked at each shift, shrinking back on reflex, but she held, no vigor to flee. Elias fished his flask and offered it. After an endless beat, she grabbed it, gulping fierce, liquid dribbling her jaw. He lingered till her gasps eased, then softly gestured to his ride. Her stare flicked wild, probing the boughs for threats lurking. At last, with shaky grip, she allowed his boost to the seat. Settled, she clutched the horn white-knuckled, scarce holding form. Elias vaulted up rearward and seized the lines. His throb echoed against her spine, and he pondered her flight span. The wake felt thick with phantoms. Each leaf's whisper yanked Elias around, braced for horsemen bursting from the shade. He pressed the beast on, picking a slim trail known to few natives, a vein veiled from most trailers. Pace alone wouldn't cut it. They craved cover. The orb rose, baking the ground, but ease eluded them both. Elias swept the crests for grit veils or far-off shapes. The woman panted in jagged hitches, each laced with ache. She stayed mum, no bid to unravel her tale, no call for it. Elias had conjured the grim already. He pushed harder, wise that each tick counted. Spot those prints? The bandits had hound. They forever did, and yield no claim without blood. By noon, Elias hit a slim gulch lane winding to his homestead, a serene swath nestled between redstone bluffs and willow groves, a spot he claimed solo, distant from village squalls. As they neared, his stock nickered from the pen, catching the strain. Elias halted by the shed, eased down and braced her drop. Her pins buckled near. He scooped her light, bearing her to the hut. No fight from her, just her crown lolling on his chest, in weary faith. Within the hut, scents of aged timber and dying coals wrapped warm. Elias eased her to a stool, fetching rag, basin, and loaf. She nibbled sparse, digits quaking. As grime cleared and her lungs leveled, Elias grasped the heft of his deed. He'd not merely aided a passer-by, he'd stepped into a fray dwarfing him. Still, as her gaze lifted, blending dread with the glint of dawn, he knew regret was off the table. Any peril trailing? It bound them now. Hush cloaked the hut when the woman at last voiced her call. Liana. Her tone was hushed, molded by fatigue and fractured tongue, but a core firmness snagged Elias unaware. She shared she was kin to a Navajo medicine woman, schooled in yarns of earth, gales, and shades. As words flowed, her eyes mirrored profound grief, the brand of souls who've trekked endless trials. Elias heard wordless. Grasping this lass had braved depths he'd scarce fathomed, spotting her shiver in the brush. Frail as she was, Liana stirred with subtle aim. She brushed the bundles Elias strung by the pain, naming each with sureness that floored him. She demoed grinding a root to tame heat, steeping leaves to ease dashes. Her nearness reshaped the hut's vibe. No more a solitary herder's den, but a nook brushed by timeless pulse, by vital breath. Yet under that peace, a dark veil clung. Elias couldn't unwind. He knew the bandits who'd caged Liana wouldn't fade. Types like that clung to what they deemed theirs. Oft he found his eyes fixed on the rim, hunting haze that heralded comers. He mended rails, eyed the herd, polished his piece morn and eve. Each gust's murmur cut keen. Liana observed soft, reading his unease sans a syllable. But as suns waned, Elias glimpsed depths in Liana beyond guess. She patted shoeless across the spread like it mapped her bones. She schooled him in earth's whispers, decoding beast prints, spotting fresh passage, gauging skies by wing patterns. She strode with the poise of one woven to soil, grasping it as few pioneers might dream. It schooled Elias humble. One dawn, mid-axe swing on logs, Liana slipped out and eyed the far peaks. Heavens held pure, bar a slim haze afar. After a drawn hush, she murmured a gale brewed, one packing fierce gusts, maybe sudden swells. Elias chuckled low, deeming her off. But come twilight, growls boomed the flats and downpours lashed thick. Elias gawked slack, while Liana perched fireside, her serene mask affirming she'd foreseen true. Her lore stretched further. She flagged secret veins on the acres Elias had overlooked, revealed a wee seep under dunes, liquid he'd missed, alerted to viper lairs ere his boot neared. Piece by piece, Elias saw Liana not mere enduring this turf, she was hewn from it. And amid those still spells, the dread he toted eased. Her closeness lent an odd shield, but threat lurked eternal. Dusk one eve, as Elias readied the meal, Liana stilled abrupt. Her gaze honed, inhales measured. She edged to the glass and strained. Elias caught zilch, but soon soft thuds of iron shod rang faint. Not the lazy trot of roamers, these pressed hard, swift, bent. Elias's ribs clamped as he snatched his iron. Liana's face showed no flail, pure intent. She'd divined the approach ere ears might snag it. The bandits had arrived. Elias dashed to douse lamps, bolt portals. His thump roared so he mused of outsiders heard. He took post by the frame, braced for clash. But rifle up, Liana grazed his limbs soft. Her palm held sure, heated, assured. She breathed the scheme, a ploy so bold Elias paused, yet her stare bore the faith he'd come to bank on. She sketched the nook to burrow, their advance's arc, the flight's surest vein. He trailed her cue, gliding rearward from the hut, ghosting around boulders and thorns. Liana steered to a slim split betwixt crags, a lair blind save to the wise. They hunkered dim as the posse hit the spread. The crew bellowed oaths, wheeled the hut, rifled the shed, damned the herder who dared intrude. Elias clenched his iron fierce, set to shield them, but Liana cupped his knuckles, anchoring. Her quiet deepened his yield to the ploy. Half an hour on, the bandits quit, deeming the place ghosted. Their mounts turned haze as they melted into dark. Elias loosed a gust he'd forgot. That instant he fathomed Liana's core might. not mere brawn, but soul-deep, gut-wise, innate. She'd spared him, not by steel, not by might, but sagacity from bloodlines who'd weathered this brutal span eons pre-Spread's rose. He eyed her anew, not the saved, but a shaper of trails for any soul striding near. Back in the hut, the quiet between them birthed fresh, potent. Elias brimmed with thanks, awe, and a soft dread, for he knew his days had twisted that first glimpse by the downed trunk. Liana was no mere fugitive from peril. She was a tempest wrought by blasts, homed by trials, steered by a hidden north. He was just beginning to follow.